Welcome to Keep Hustling, where we are going past the why to get to the how. I'm your host, the always hustling Aaron Gordon, aka NY Risk Advisor, aka Mr. Keep Hustling. In this podcast, we will be diving deep into the professional and personal successes of our guests to find out how they hustled through the most difficult times in their life and their development to achieve the success they've gotten to today. So buckle up for what hopes to be an amazing ride. And of course, now and always, keep hustling. Welcome to Keep Hustling with my guest, Zoli Honig. Zoli, thank you for being here.
Of course, my pleasure. Good to see you again, my friend.
It is great to see you. I've kind of been stalking you, but that's okay. The beauty of social media, I feel, is that you can stalk people and they view it as you consuming their content, so they actually love it. So you can, as long as you just keep consuming people's content, and I say this to my listeners and my followers also, if you want to stalk me, go for it as long as you like, comment, and share. That's all you got to do.
It's not stalking if I'm putting out the content, right? Like, I want you to watch it. That's not stalking.
100%.
Please engage with the content. Comment, like, follow, share. That's exactly what I want you to do.
100%. And we will, and obviously with all of our guests, we will put Zoli's handles in the show notes and make sure that you follow him because he's a great follow, not only for what he's doing professionally, personally, also if you're like me and you live in the Northeast and every once in a while you want to be jealous of some guy who's running in the heat of Miami, then follow Zoli. That's basically what it boils down to.
Yes.
So let's jump right into it. Tell us what we need to know about the upbringing of Zoli Honig that created the crazy hustler, not just the runner, that we know today.
Sure. So, a quick intro. My name is Zoli Honig. I have a social media agency called Short Form Media. We specialize in creating viral content, usually around personal brands. So lawyers, executives, VCs, had a lot of real success with that so far. Only been doing this for about a year, but this is not my first company. This is probably my fifth. We'll go through all of them, I'm sure, maybe if we have time. But what caused that hustle to be like the guy who's just like startups, building your own thing, not the guy who wants the job? Where did that come from? So I think like early on, so I'm the oldest, right? I have 4 younger siblings, and thank God, I love my parents. They gave me the perfect childhood, like no complaints. Mom, Dad, I love you if you're listening. Everything's great. However, it's not like I had unlimited cash. I wasn't one of those kids who just like, whatever you wanted, you got. If I wanted something, I needed to work for it, right? I needed to earn the money. So it started with babysitting, and I'm like, oh my God, I can make $20 an hour for, just sitting in someone's house. That's awesome. Then it got into IT. I figured out how to use computers just on my own. And I'm like, oh my God, I can charge people to like fix their computers. And I remember even as like a little kid, I figured out how Napster worked. And I figured out how like file systems work. I think it was like
Gen Z, just so you guys know, Napster was a thing in our childhood. I know
Yes.
Zoli and I were not that old, but one day you're going to look back and you're going to say something about some piece of technology and everyone's going to laugh at you. Napster was it. It wasn't like it was it.
Well, then it was LimeWire or Kazaa.
But Napster was it. Napster was, if you wanted illegal free video content or audio content, I think it was just audio. Was it video? Even?
Just audio. Just
audio. Right. Yeah. I remember that's where you got all the rap music that your parents didn't
exactly
buy for you.
So I was a kid. I wanted to get some music, right? I didn't have money for, going into the store. So I would download them on Napster. And then I figured out, I'm like, oh, this is how file systems work. And this is how this. And then I just sort of self-taught because I was I'm a very curious person. I'm always asking questions. I'm always pushing buttons. My mom hated that as a kid. I was always breaking things because I like to push all the buttons. Eventually, I learned how to not break it and fix it instead. Took a while. Thanks, Mom, for bearing with me while I did that. And then I was like, oh my God, I can monetize this thing that I figured out by myself because other people haven't. That's incredible. So in high school, I was doing IT. I was like the local IT kid. When someone had a problem with their computer or their network, and like I was going into like mansions, like these guys, they don't want to pay an IT company. They want to pay a kid, $50 an hour. And I was cleaning up in high school. Like I was making serious money for a high school kid. And so like I would treat my siblings, I would buy them little toys, I would buy them little gifts. And like I was like, wow, this is amazing to like earn your own money and be able to get the things you want without having to ask someone for it. And so just this love of like creating and building ultimately, obviously I'm a kid who loved Legos. Who doesn't, right? And
Right.
so I would say like just like I love building Lego sets as a kid. I love building businesses. I love building things, and that's really what I'm passionate about. I just love to build.
So I want to touch on that because you mentioned I also lost count of the number of businesses following you over the last number of years. I assume that there have been some that were successful, some that were, or I should say, some that were very successful. We can touch on some of the famous moments in a minute, and some that were less than successful or less successful than you thought they were going to be in those ventures. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe you're the guy who bats 1,000, but I assume not. So how do you first of all put yourself in a position to be able to evaluate when you're getting to the end of a runway? And second, how do you pick up from that? Because a lot of people would say, maybe two in a row. Again, I don't know exactly how the timeline worked, but like one or two in a row didn't work, or this whatever, or this idea didn't pan out. Maybe I should get a desk job. But you literally refused to do that, and now you're uber successful. So,
well, not necessarily. I mean, when shit hit the fan, I was actually like, okay, I need a job in my first failed venture, which was a frozen yogurt store. I wouldn't call it failed though. So like,
first of all, I love that frozen yogurt store. I don't know which it was not failed.
We'll talk about it. Right. So that's the thing. You say like not successful. To me, did I make money on opening a frozen yogurt store when I was 20 years old? No, I lost all my savings in that venture, all of it. However, the business is still standing today. And the amount I learned opening that business, I call it my MBA program. And it was much cheaper than an MBA, I promise you.
Even though you lost all your savings doing it, it was
even though I lost it. Well, thank God, I was young. I didn't really have anything to like worry about, but lost, many tens of thousands of dollars on this business. However, which is hard to do as a 20-something-year-old kid, but the lessons I learned, I mean, so to give you some context, this was back in around 2009, 2010, when like Pinkberry was really hot. Remember when everyone loved Pinkberry and Red Mango and like frozen yogurt was the thing. And so,
the store where you didn't think you were getting ripped off, you were self-serve. You could take as much as you wanted. You didn't think you were getting ripped off. Yeah, the whole thing.
Right, exactly. So we wanted to bring that concept to our local community. So we opened up a store. It was called Berrylicious. You may know it. It was on in Lawrence, right next to the Dunkin' Donuts over there. You may have seen it. And I came up. This was like in college. I was creating the brand identity. I remember. I was creating, sort of the menu, sourcing vendors, sourcing product, sourcing machinery. Like while I'm sitting in my like college business class, when like kids are learning stuff that like I've known for like 10 years, I'm like literally building a business in the classroom, which was cool. And then you make a lot of mistakes, right? You learn what payroll tax is. You learn what unemployment insurance is. You're like, oh, I need that sort of thing. Like, whoa, you learn what a grease trap is and how important that is and why the health department won't let you open without it. Like the amount of knowledge I acquired just like trying and failing in that business is unbelievable. So even though it wasn't financially successful, for me, I consider it a positive experience that really molded a lot of the skills that I have today.
So, and isn't that what Keep Hustling is about? It's about saying, what I've said on the podcast before, and I believe in this, and I know that everybody has a story. And a lot of times we romanticize founders, especially, and the people, the entrepreneurs that we look up to, because we only get exposure to them when they've made it, because that's when they're able to come into the public sphere. But it's like every single one who I see, yourself included, you realize that the most successful entrepreneurs and founders are the ones who say there is no such thing as a failure, a real failure. It's a learning experience, like you're saying, and it's an opportunity for me to say, hone my craft in something. By the way, maybe it was an opportunity to say retail food stores are not my skill. Meaning I'm going to take the skills, but I learned what I am not great at, and that is running an ice cream store. I don't know.
I said to myself, I will never open another food business unless it is in like an airport or New York City. And it's like, I have like a partner doing it. Cause like the food business, oh my God,
Because I was
No.
going to say, I thought you were back. Didn't you end up back in the food business?
That's the ironic part about it. I did end up back in the food business, but we'll talk about that later.
Okay, so
But it
very
wasn't. But
delicious,
it
very
wasn't. But
delicious
again,
that my
I
family and
was
I
like a
loved.
cog in a 1,000-person company, so like it was a little different.
Right, but
But
we
we'll talk.
loved.
We'll get
By
there.
the first of all, my family huge consumers. I live in Queens. There was a branch there. I don't know if you were involved in that branch.
Yeah, of course. So the store actually, I think at its peak had like 4 or 5 locations. This happened after we sold it. So we sold it, but didn't really recoup much. And yeah, the store still exists today. The
It
brand still
does.
exists today.
We
And
go
you
there
know
all the
what?
time.
I I drive by with my kids and I point to that and I'm like, you know who made that? And they're like, yep, Daddy made that. And I remember in Photoshop designing the logo, and like it's just cool. We're almost 15 years later, and I'm looking and I'm like, I built that. And that's a really cool feeling. And it goes back to that, like, I just love building. That's just that sense of like you set it up, you put it out in the world, and it's still in the world. It's a really cool, gratifying feeling that if you're not an entrepreneur, you really don't get to experience.
100%. But and then you jump back in. I don't even know what happened next.
So you were asking like how it's like not working out. You sort of get the feeling. You don't really have to like have someone tell you. You get that gut feeling. And when you finally, have that moment where you're honest with yourself and you say, okay, maybe it's time to move on. Maybe it's time to do something else. And happened to be God threw me an opportunity in my good friend Michael Levy. He came over to my house. He's like, I'm working on something. I want to ask what you think. And he had a mock-up of an education platform that he was thinking of. We were both in college. We hated using Blackboard. He showed me the mock-up and I'm like, holy hell, this is amazing. Like, we need to build this. Let's do it. Like, I was just instantly hooked. And we became co-founders. So I left Berrylicious. We sold it. We transitioned into building the startup Chalkable. But we built it completely bootstrapped for almost 2 years. So while we were bootstrapping that, I actually took a job back with my IT company that I worked for back in like high school, college. So I was splitting my time. I would spend 2 days a week working IT so I could actually pay my bills and like pay my rent and pay for like my kid's formula because I had a kid at the time. And then the other 3 days a week, I was just in Michael's house, just working on product, just hustling, just finding developers, building software. And this was like, that company was my first real adventure in the creation of, software as a service.
But I think that part of the story is so important because so many people would have said, I got to be nuts to jump back in. I got to be nuts. Whatever, even if you sold it for a profit, it wasn't a large profit. It wasn't a huge exit. And yet you still said to yourself, this is awesome. We're going to do this. By the way, I'm going to work 2 jobs. But I feel like you're also saying in the back of your mind, as you said, the IT was just to pay the bills. Your plan was not to work for somebody else in IT. It was to do something founding. This was a SaaS opportunity. But I just, that is, anyone who's listening, that is the power of the hustle, is realizing that you have something to give. And by the way, it could be that you're employee number 1 or employee number 10 at a company, and you don't really want to be the founder, but you want to be that foundational source that the founder leans on. And then you get to say, look at what we built. Because I think one of the things that we can agree on is that great startups and great companies are built on and with their great employees, especially the long-term ones.
It's all about people. And the interesting part about it was in that time, like 2010, entrepreneurship wasn't sexy. It was like crazy. Like Facebook just started. It didn't even have like an ad platform yet. It was crazy. My parents were like, what are you doing with your life? Like your brothers are going to work at Goldman Sachs. Your sister is a doctor. Your brother-in-law is a lawyer. What are you doing? Just like, why can't you like just go back to, oh, and by the way, I dropped out of college. I never even finished to open the frozen yogurt store.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, I'm a college dropout.
You know what? Aren't all good founders? Aren't all
Yeah,
good billionaires?
you know what? I was building the business in my college class, and then it was time to launch, and I was also getting married, and I was like, you know what? Just too much going on. I'm going to take a semester off. And I remember going to someone in the college. I'm like, yeah, I'm going to take a semester off. She's like, you're not coming back. And she was in the business program. I'm like, no, I'm going to come back. She's like, I know it. You're not coming back.
Maybe you'll get an EMBA in 20 years, but that's it.
I always say to my wife now, I'm like, I'll get a college degree when I like donate a wing to some university, like an honorary degree, like a
I can't wait to
Zuckerberg
be there.
move.
Can't wait to
Yeah,
be there.
yeah,
So I want to jump to two other things about your career that I have to touch on.
sure.
But I want to lead with my next question, which is take us to the most pivotal moment in your career getting to this moment. I know there've been a lot, but like what is that pivotal moment? And if you mentioned the one I was going to ask about, great. If not, then we'll get there.
I'm trying to think if there was a pivotal moment, like a specific moment. I don't think I can't pin it down to like one specific thing that changed everything for me. I will say having your company acquired, and when that wire hits, that's a pretty pivotal moment. That's the moment
100%.
where you're like, oh, it does work. And then everyone, like, I tweeted this the other day. I'm like, everyone thinks you're crazy till it works. And so,
But by the way, and then you also know it works. Meaning, as confident as a person can be, there's got to be that moment where you're like, what if this doesn't work? And then it does, and you're like,
oh, I didn't sleep for 5 years.
but that's what I'm saying. So it's like, but this actually worked, which then the crazy part about it is the black hole that is hustle is some people would say, okay, let's get out.
Right.
Okay, I didn't sleep for 5 years. I got some money. I'm going to go be normal, for lack of a better term, like our parents want us to be. But then you're like, no, it like sucks you back in, and you're like, what's the next thing?
So we ended up selling that education company. It was called Chalkable. We sold it for a very nice amount. It was I remember when the wire hit, I was like nervous. I'm like, can a bank account hold this much money? I was like, I've never seen that.
So you sell your business, you have this number that's in the account.
So we sold. So actually, it didn't actually go like that. So we actually sold the company in I think 2012 or 2013, and we sold it for shares in another company. So it was a stock. It was a stock deal. We ended up selling. So the company we started was called Chalkable. It was an education platform for schools, K through 12 schools, and we had a real tough time with distribution. Selling to schools is very difficult, really long sales cycle. We can talk about that for hours. What we ended up doing was selling to a company down in Alabama who had a state contract. So they had a state contract with the entire state of Alabama, and they had like, I think Oklahoma as well, but they were a very old software company, and everything was like enterprise and like horrible to use. And so they acquired us and like applied that as like the layer on top. So it was like a beautiful modern web application, and we deployed it statewide, which was really, really cool to see your product. And then like, I think today it's again still in use. Like my son actually said to me, because we'll get there, but so that company in Alabama, actually it was called STI, Software Technology Inc. It was started in the 80s, like when software was a buzzword, and they actually rebranded the company to our company name. They rebranded to Chalkable. So this huge company with like 150 employees is like, yeah, actually we're gonna rebrand to your startup name that you guys came up with at your friend's house when you were struggling at 21 years old.
Talk about validation.
Yeah. And I think it's still live today in the state of Alabama. So if you still use Chalkable and you live in Alabama, let me know.
It's unbelievable.
Yeah. So we sold it for stock, and we obviously and it was an earnout as well. So when you sell a company, sometimes there's something called an earnout. So you say we get like a base amount, and you can earn more based on the performance at the company. This incentivizes the founders to stick around. And so we stayed there for a couple of years, and eventually that company in Alabama was sold to PowerSchool, which is the largest edtech company in America, and that those shares ended up becoming cash.
Yowza.
Yeah.
Not bad.
Yeah.
So I got to ask you about another moment, and then I don't want to forget I think one of my most important questions about your contribution to our society. But you were on Shark Tank. You are the only guest I've had so far that has been on Shark Tank.
Yep.
Everybody who's listening to this, because I don't want to get bogged down in that detail, must go to Zoli's Instagram. I don't know if it's on other platforms. Let me know if it is when I mention
Every
everyone.
platform.
So everyone needs to look at every platform. I believe the video is pinned, and everybody needs to look at the video from your keynote where you spoke about how you reverse engineered marketing on Shark Tank. I don't want to steal that because I want you to get the views, but every single person must watch that because it is one of the sickest, slickest, insane pieces of marketing that happened. But I want to ask you that I've ever heard of. So aside from that, what did you gain? Not just the Shark Tank, what is it that Kevin O'Leary says, the Shark Tank effect, that people all of a sudden instantly are Googling your company, but what did you gain from like a business acumen mind going through that experience, having the lead up to it, and then the post Shark Tank effect, impact, all that? What did you learn? Because you're not at that company anymore. So what did you learn that has stuck with you now in your hustle from that experience?
You know, it's actually relevant to what we're doing right now. So I have a post about this as well. But so following selling this company, I had another friend who came to me, knew I did apps and software, came to me. He's like, I have this idea for this company. We're going to rent people cars for free, electric cars, and we're going to put digital advertising displays on top, and we're going to make money from the ads, and people can rent the cars for free. And I'm like, you're out of your mind. You're out of your mind. And then I ran the numbers on like advertising, whatever. I'm like, oh, this is actually a viable business. Like, this actually may not be a terrible idea. And so this guy was very, very persistent. I said no to him many, many times, but eventually he got me as a co-founder. Built the business, raised the money, launched. It's called Wave Car, launched in 2016 in Santa Monica with 20 electric vehicles, with digital displays mounted on top, with an ad campaign from Oscar Health Insurance. Like, it worked. Like, we did it. And shortly after we launched, we had crazy press, right? People were like, insane, a free car sharing program? Like,
electric, good for the environment? Like, come on.
Yeah, it was like win, 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 win. Like, good for advertisers, good for consumers, good for everyone. It was like, and this wasn't like the Tesla Model 3 wasn't even out yet. Like, this was early electric cars. We were using Chevy Spark EVs, okay? Shortly after we launched, I get an email. Shortly after we were launched, we get an interview request from like the local paper, the Santa Monica Daily Press, right? Santa Monica Daily Press, local paper. No one reads it. It's like in those little, mailbox things that on the sidewalk. They're like, yeah, sure, of course we'll do the interview. Even though it was a no-name paper. And so we took the time to do the interview. Article comes out. We don't think anything of it. Week goes by. We get a random email. The email is from a guy with a Gmail address. And the email goes, hey, I don't know if you're raising money, but I work for Shark Tank, and I think your business is really interesting, and I think you'd be great on the show, and we'd love to talk. And my immediate thought is, spam, Gmail? What? So I'm like, I'm curious. I Google the guy's name, LinkedIn, executive producer. I'm like, holy crap. So I email him.
This guy needs someone to get him in on tech to know how to use the right email address.
So I email him back right away. I'm like, sounds great. Let's jump on a call. I jump on a call. I go, man, what's with the Gmail? He's like, it's very complicated because Sony owns Shark Tank, but ABC owns the airing rights. So like, no one really wants to give us like domain, whatever. Now they have it. They figured it out since then. But so I said, how'd you find out about us? So he goes, it was the funniest thing. I was in in a doctor's appointment or something, and they had a Santa Monica Daily Press just sitting out on the waiting room, and I started reading it, and I'm like, damn, this is interesting. So that no-name interview with that no-name paper that nobody read, one guy read it. One guy read it that mattered. And that guy was the executive producer of Shark Tank. And we went on Shark Tank because of that no-name interview. So when someone asks you to do a podcast or be on their blog or whatever, do it. It'll cost you just your time, but you have no idea. All you need is one incredible person to see that for your entire company and career trajectory to change completely. So always do the interview.
That is crazy. I didn't even, that part of the story, maybe I didn't see that post, but that's the hustle. That's literally a do something. And by the way, how often is it that the things that you think are going to pan out most don't pan out?
Always.
Like that media thing that you're like, wow, this is going to take it viral, and you're in the viral business. And then it's that, and I think you've posted on this, that sometimes it's the thing that you least expect to go viral. You try it. Santa Monica, Daily. Do you have a copy of that paper? I hope you do.
I probably, yeah. I think we have it framed somewhere. Yeah.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Uh,
Actually, I have this little desk toy still here. These were the cars. This was Wave
yeah,
Car over here.
amazing. Yeah, well, yeah,
So
amazing,
Oscar Health Insurance. That's the digital display on top. Yeah.
unbelievable. Everyone should check. But seriously, everyone needs to check out that post. I don't want to ruin it, but that post, the keynote, I don't know where you were speaking about the marketing gimmick, is insane. I actually go back to it all the time. I'm
Basically,
oddly
we.
obsessed with it. Reverse engineered it.
You want me to give the quick version?
No, no, I
No.
don't. Reverse engineered. Everyone needs to watch it. And when you watch it, comment and say, I watched this because of the Keep Pulsing podcast. And we'll get you some giveaway or something.
Sounds good.
I got to ask you about the book.
Yes, sure.
Because I'm a father of 5 children. I'm in an industry that is not cool, basically the insurance industry. And I want to know what made you want to write the book. Everyone knows that it is a book called Young Founders, Little Founders.
The series is called Little Founders.
Little Founders. I'm sorry. For the young little founders. I have them at home. I think everyone needs to check it out. It's great. They're fun. Kids, you can learn about founders. But I think it's like everyone thinks that entrepreneurship is cool, but yet you were able to bring it to like a really kid level. And I'm just curious, what made you want to do that? What your thoughts on it, and kind of just the whole deal behind that.
Yeah, absolutely. So I picked up my son from school one day. Also, I'm a father of 2, I have 2 boys. Picked him up from school one day, and my son's like me, not super athletic, likes tech, like is a bit nerdy, but whatever. I think he's not bullied nearly as much as I was bullied. I don't think he's bullied at all. Thank God.
Because his father runs gajillion miles a month or whatever.
Yeah. Anyways, but he gets in the car and he's very upset. Like I'm like, what happened? And he said, these kids were making fun of me. And I said, what are they making fun of you for? They said, I'm not good at sports. And he was crying. And I was like, oh my God, like it's happening again. And so this, and it just hit me so hard. And I turn around and I say to him, his name is Levi. I say, Levi, do you know who Elon Musk is? And he goes, yeah, he's the richest man in the world. I said, do you think Elon Musk is good at sports? So he goes, no. I said, do you know who Jeff Bezos or Bill Gates or Mark Zuckerberg, do you think they're good at sports? I mean, Mark Zuckerberg, that's a new thing. Yeah. But the point
that's new money sports. That is not.
Yeah, exactly.
Anybody can become good at sports if you put enough money behind it. Anybody.
Exactly. So I say to him, these people are the most successful people in the world, and sports has nothing to do with it. You need to follow what you're passionate about, and you need to know that if you follow your dreams and just keep doing the thing you love, you're going to be better than all these kids that are making fun of you that are not good at sports, because none of these kids are going to be NBA players. I promise you. But you, Levi, you're going to be that successful entrepreneur if you want to be, right? Whatever you want to do in life. And after that conversation, it like really stuck with me for a little bit. And what really hit me was like, kids don't know the real stories of these people. They know the names, they know the outcomes, but they don't know the story, because the Steve Jobs book, the Elon Musk biography, it's written for adults. It's not written for kids. And so I'm like, these lessons and stories and the things that made, like me watching Steve Jobs video and reading that documentary and getting fired up from it, he doesn't have that. But if I can dumb that down and tell their story in a child-friendly way, imagine how many entrepreneurs we can create from that. And that's where the inspiration started, from some kids bullying my kid.
You know what? He's going to get the last laugh. I know he's going to get the last laugh. You certainly have gotten the last laugh. And I don't even think you're in the halfway chapter of the story yet, but you've certainly gotten the last laugh.
And the ironic part is that I'm the most athletic now.
Right, exactly. By the way, yeah, I did play the sports in high school, probably against the school that you went to. And you are far more athletic than anyone that I know. So fine, whatever. But we're not going to rub it in on me here. We're just going to, this is about you. It's not about me.
That's good. That's good.
But the, really everything you did, your story, I know we didn't even get to half of it, but like, there's so much there to unpack, and there's so much hustle and incredible inspiration there. I really thank you for taking the time. As you said, you never know what will come of something, but more importantly, watching your development. I think the last time we probably saw each other, we might have run into each other in other places, might not have been Berrylicious. We were in, I think, Yeshiva and Yerushalayim together. So we did that in Jerusalem. So we did that. We've had a lot of things, but just watching your journey has been super inspirational. Not just because you're in Florida now and you leave the window open so that everyone has to look at that. It's not just about the sunshine. It's also about the hustle. So really thank you for being here. We have a closing tradition on this podcast where we ask our guests to leave us with their favorite all-time or current inspirational, motivational quote and what it means to them. So with that, I will turn the floor over to you. And again, everyone, Zoli Honig, all socials, follow it, watch the video of the Shark Tank, watch all the videos, follow Short Form Media, and also buy the books.
Yeah. Well, awesome being here. There's definitely a lot more to cover. My putting stuff out there, as you said, that's how I'm in my current business, just by putting stuff out there. That's a story for the second podcast that we do. But my favorite quote that really guides a lot of the way I think and the way I approach business and life is that really famous Steve Jobs quote that the world that you know was invented by people no smarter than you. And all the rules around it and everything and the way the world works was invented by people. And you can change it. And this thing we call life, these society, these buildings, these rules, these laws, it can all change. And you have the ability to change it. And this quote was actually like pretty early in Steve Jobs' career. This was not like post iPod or anything like that. And that's really how he looked at the world. Like, you know what? This can change. And so I'm a guy who just hates inefficiency, hates when things are like just stupid for no reason. I was the kid arguing in class with my teacher, like making us memorize something. I'm like, this is a pointless activity because it's not going to accomplish anything. But I was always like that as a kid. And when I saw that quote, I resonated it with it so heavily. And so that really helps me get outside the box, really talk about, really get into the things that most people wouldn't, because they say, but nobody does that. I'm like, exactly. That's why it's a great opportunity. And so that's my favorite quote.
And I think it's also about saying, and why not me who can do it? Meaning I can do it.
100%.
That's also, it can be done. It will be done. It should be done. It should be done by those who are inspired to do it. Zoli Honig, thank you again for being here.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
This has been another episode of Keep Hustling. Remember, do well by doing good and always keep hustling. All right, hustlers, that brings us to the end of another fantastic episode. Thank you for listening. Be sure to subscribe to our podcast so you never miss an episode. If you have any suggestions, comments, or even just want to say hello, please feel free to reach out to us on all social media platforms. We are Keep Hustling Pod. Until next time, stay curious, stay hungry, and keep hustling.